Yeah, I used to walk around here a lot, especially before I bought the property, because you have all these old terraces, and that's one of the things I really liked about it. So the Q&A, I think I have been postponing it a little bit too. You know, once I start to talk about my life or the past and all the adventures, I think I can keep going on for a long time. So I tend to veer off course. There was a question about would I've done things different. And actually that's why I'm standing here, because if you look back, maybe I could have finished inside, but then I wouldn't have planted any trees, wouldn't have built any terraces, and I spent well, close to 9 months building all these terraces, planting trees, building the terraces upstairs. So to me it's an integrated project. Everything has to come together at one point. I think there's not one project that goes to plan. In my case, if I look at this property, I started with an idea to search for a small house, maybe 80 to 100 square meters, and then have a big garden, plant a food forest. But everything changed during COVID. In the beginning, the first month of COVID, I re-evaluated what I was doing and what I wanted to do in the future. Maybe it was better to buy more of these houses on top of the hill, because it's like a borgo with different houses. Because the quality of the life that you lead, it's actually what I've been looking for, you know. It's your daily activities, you're always outside, I'm in nature. Winters are not like up north. My oldest olive tree. I have to prune it a little bit. March, April. There was a question about privacy. Not too concerned about privacy. I have asked myself a couple of times, how personal do you get? Not sure. So, where do you come from? I have Dutch parents, but I was born in Colombia, South America. I was raised in a plantation, on a plantation. Bananas, palm oil trees. There were like 3 houses or 4 houses and a swimming pool. We had 50 chickens, the neighbor had a couple of cows, the other neighbor had some horses, so I've been horseback riding since I was 2, and I was in the pool probably from my first year. Homeschooled by my mom until I was 8 years old, and then we immigrated to the Dutch Caribbean islands. Spent another 7 or 8 years there. Wonderful time. You know, you go to school in the morning at 7 until 1 o'clock. You go home, have lunch, and the rest of the day you spent outside. At night you would do your homework and you would probably be in bed by 9:30. There was no TV, no internet, and most of the afternoons we were just sent to the beach, swim in the sea, go sailing, windsurfing. Really a wonderful time. I didn't know anything different from that. But then, one day, my parents told me that we were moving to the Netherlands. And that was a bit of a shock. So you're a teenager, 15, 16 years old. I think it depends a lot on your personality. But I'm pretty shy and an introvert person, even though it may not seem like this today. So it was a shock. Very difficult couple of years. I had never seen ice or snow, never went to school on a bicycle. You basically get ripped out of the world that you know and you're put in another world you don't know. You lose all your friends. Yeah, I don't have a very nice recollection of that period. And it lasted a couple of years. I did manage to finish my secondary school. I was 17 years old, almost 18. So after finishing secondary school, I was really longing for the good old days, the world that I knew. And I thought Africa was like the Caribbean. So I bought a ticket, and I had an army backpack, and I went for 2 or 3 months to Africa. It was very adventurous. It was nothing like the Caribbean. Lots of dangerous situations when I think back about it. But I did learn to defend myself a little bit, stand up for myself. I was on a $3 budget, I remember, a day. One for sleeping, one for traveling, and one for eating. Eventually I did get a little bit used to life in the Netherlands, and first I went to study economics. It wasn't a big success. And I stopped for a year. I worked and I traveled. And then I studied tourism, marketing and finance. That went pretty well. But already during those days, I was quite sure that once I would finish studying, I would go back to the Caribbean. And so I did. I worked as a host in Jamaica. I worked on the beach in the Dominican Republic. I became a PADI dive instructor. Then later on I went to Venezuela. And I did a lot of tours as a tour guide. I had groups, 16 people. Not always that easy. Long tours, 1, 2 weeks. And it's funny how all these kind of jobs, at a certain point, you get bored. It becomes work. It becomes a job. And if you're young, it's okay. You can change as many times as you want. A dive instructor, that was nice in the beginning. But at a certain point, I was doing like 3 dives a day, morning, afternoon, midday. And sometimes I would just come back in the afternoon. I was so tired. I would grab a bottle, oxygen bottle, and I would go and submerge myself to the floor, to the ocean floor at 4 or 5 meters, and just stay there for an hour and a half and suck that bottle empty, just to relax. And the same happened with the tours. If you do 1, 2 week tours, first of all, it's always the same tour. Then it also depends a lot of the group that you have. I personally am very interested in culture, history, so I did know a lot, but you also had groups who would ask for a Bacardi Cola on the first morning. I was like, okay, not really what I like a lot. Anyway, during that time I did have a nice time. I met the mother of my kids in Jamaica. We had our first born son and we stayed in Venezuela, Grenada. I wanted to go back to Europe because I didn't want my kids to grow up in the Caribbean. I think it's nice when you're young to live there, and maybe when you're older to retire. But having known the rest of the world or another part of the world, I just didn't see myself staying on an island anymore. So yeah, I have two grown sons. I was a bit of a young father. They are 27 and 25. I do go to visit every 3 months usually, sometimes a little bit more. And they do come around here too, not very frequently. On one hand because I don't have where to stay, and on the other hand they also have their own life, so that's okay with me, you know. Unfortunately, with two kids, we got divorced in 2005, and that's when I lost my house, our house. That was my first house. I bought that in 1998, I think. Spent 7 years renovating that place. We had a very big kitchen. I think it was the centerpiece of the whole house, looking out over the garden, probably around 40 square meters, with an island, kitchen island. I remember the kids, I don't know how many thousands of rounds they made through that kitchen on their small bicycles. So after my first divorce, I rented an apartment for about 2 years. That's really not for me. Finally found myself a small house with 3 bedrooms. I didn't have any money back then, so I just did a quick refreshment of the interior. Tiled the floors, plastered the walls, put some new lights on. Good place for us. Very big garden. And I think that's a little bit where the seeds were sown for this project. I knew I didn't want to stay in Belgium. I was living in Belgium. It was good as it was. It had a big garden, and I always loved gardening. Even in the first house I created a new garden from scratch. This one was the same. It was just grass, and I created a completely new garden. I started to grow my own veggies. I planted fruit trees, berries. And if I look back after 10 years later, it was like a food forest. A small one, but a food forest. I had some chickens, and they were just walking around all day. It's funny, chickens, if they have like a home, they wander around all day, and at night time they will just go back to their home. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that the seed was sown in 2010. Now, when I bought my first house, I didn't have a lot of knowledge about renovating. My father-in-law helped me. It was a very nice time. My Spanish is pretty good, almost perfect, but I didn't know any Italian. My father-in-law and the mother for my kids is Italian, so there you have a connection with Italy. And we worked together for 6 weeks. And it seems at first sight that Italian and Spanish look a lot the same, but they're absolutely not. So that's where I learned my first Italian words. And he taught me a lot of things. He worked as a constructor, so basically he could explain to me how he thought it should have been done. With my second house I didn't have any money. So in 2010 I thought, you know, if you want to do another renovation one day in your life, you need money. So that's basically when I started to save money for a future project. I didn't know where, I didn't know when. Yeah, so if you ask me what I would recommend to somebody who wants to do the same, I think first of all you need money in your pocket. It's difficult to get a loan, especially for renovations. I'm not sure about other countries, but in Italy it's not easy. And if you want to make a little business out of it, it's almost impossible. I think the second thing is definitely patience. You know, there is a lot of bureaucracy in southern European countries, but is it really a problem? I don't know. I think it's depends a little bit on your mindset. You know, if you know it's like that, and if you have time and you take time, you will find a solution for every problem. So I never really felt like the bureaucracy is a big thing. I have helped a lot of other people because I'm here for 5 years now. I worked in another house. I help people buy houses, been a power of attorney, etc. I've looked at a lot of houses. Yeah, you sometimes you see people and they think that maybe in a couple of months they can do a complete renovation. Doesn't work like that at all. So between 2011 and 2017, I traveled a lot. Well, I always traveled. I traveled almost all around the world. So I went to look a little bit in Europe, Spain, Portugal, south of France, Greece, the islands, Italy. I've seen all the regions in Italy, all the islands. And I went to South America, Central America, Panama, and of course Colombia. Yeah, I went a couple of years back and forth to Colombia, exploring the whole country. Of course, it wasn't like I knew it from my youth, but it's a beautiful country. It's just that if you want to do something like this, buy yourself a farmhouse in the countryside in Colombia, I wouldn't recommend it. It's probably too dangerous. So I went back and forth to Colombia for many years. I even took my sons in 2016. We went on a big road trip. Peru, Colombia, rented a car. I think it was during that period that we were together, we talked a lot, and we all agreed that it's nice. It's a really nice place. But we also agreed that it was a little bit far, you know. If you migrate to South America and your kids and your family, they live in the Netherlands, it's not like you come up and down every 2 or 3 months. Maybe once a year, and that's not that much. Plus it's also, in case of an emergency, it's not like you jump in a plane and a few hours later you touch the ground. No, no, no. So from 2016 onwards, Colombia as a destination was basically off the table, and I started to concentrate a little bit more on Spain and on Italy. So, Italy, where do you go? I don't think there's a region I don't like. In Italy I went to Sicily a couple of times because I think it's the most beautiful place probably. It's the most beautiful because it has everything. It's a really big island, there's so much culture, history, interesting cities, Roman villas, Greek temples, there's even traces of the Vikings. But you know, Sicily, like many other regions for me in Italy, is just too far away because the only way transport method is a plane. And I didn't want to depend only on a plane. I want to be able to jump into a car and go up north. And if that's a requirement, then even Florence is already too far away. Because Florence, driving to Florence would take me at least 15 hours. To do that in a day, not recommended. I tried it a couple of times, but it's just too far away. So one of the northern regions, close to the lakes maybe. Lago Maggiore, Lago di Como. They are very expensive though. And I want to do a renovation. So not something that was already done or half done, no, from scratch. I went to see a little bit the other side of Italy, but I don't like the Adriatic Sea. After Rimini, when you get to Abruzzo, Le Marche, Abruzzo, the sea is already different. But in the corner, not that, I don't like it that much. So other regions in Europe, I went to the Balkans a lot, and I was really fond of Montenegro. In fact, in Montenegro I met my Russian wife, because I remarried in 2013, unfortunately also divorced in 2019. But Montenegro, it's like an unknown jewel. It's just that the language is very difficult. It's not based on Roman language, it's Slavic. So I have Bulgaria and then the Balkans. Romania, it's okay. Romania, it's different. But Montenegro, the language is a barrier. I think you need to speak the language wherever you go. If you want to do something like this, you live in some other country, you need to adjust yourself and you have to learn the language. Montenegro. Actually in 2009 or 2010 I started a Facebook page on Montenegro. I think I was the second biggest page after a year, and it's still online. Still 15,000 or something followers on that page. So after coming back to Europe, stayed in Belgium for the rest of the time, I went to work for a bank. Imagine that. I still remember, I will never forget, you know, there is like a rolling staircase, an escalator, and it was the main building. And in the morning you'd arrive and the escalator would go up, and from 4 o'clock in the afternoon it would go down. I couldn't imagine people working there. And actually, I don't know, I stayed there for 2 years. But you know, you have kids, you have responsibilities, you need an income. I was looking around to go away, but then I was offered a transfer to the internet department, which was all young and new. Actually, I was one of the older guys, and I really liked it there for some time. It's just that in the corporate world, to my taste, things don't move. I'm a very practical and pragmatic person, so I prefer to do things and see the results ASAP from what you do. So it didn't last for long until 2003. After I worked with a friend. He was selling swimming pools and hot tubs. Unfortunately, it didn't last too long because he got ill and he died at a very young age. So after that I did have some experience in the internet world, and I started a small company as an independent, building front ends, getting people to go on Facebook, LinkedIn. I was mostly interested in the front, you know, what customers see and use. I did like content creation a lot. I was pretty good at writing and getting my clients on the first page of Google back then. I have no technical skills. I'm not a programmer at all. It's more like a project manager, sales manager. I'm also not a very good manager. I can probably manage 4 people, maybe 5, and that's it. So I worked with programmers in Romania for almost 18 years. I worked in Ukraine for a couple of years, 4 years. Then I got married to a Russian woman, so I spent a lot of time in Russia too. I knew a bit of Russian. probably still know a couple of sentences. So yeah, I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, but you could basically see it coming, especially after that Munich speech from Putin in 2007. I'm really a history freak. I love history. And it's a pity because Russia, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. It has so much history, so much culture. So I really dived into that history back then for like 6, 7 years, and I visited so many places. I flew in the oldest Soviet type of Tupolovs, and I've seen all the old airports, Donetsk, but also in Kazan, Domodedovo, in Moscow, and then I saw the new airports with the European Championship, Soccer Championship in 2012. 2014, the first part of the war broke out, and that airport in Donetsk, it's nothing left of it. Berdyansk, Mariupol, all those places that you read about in the news, Sea of Azov. But then Russia, if you go to Petersburg, it's really fantastic. The Hermitage, the Winter Palace, the Summer Palace, the fortresses. And that all stems from the period of Peter the Great. My wife was from Kazan, so I also visited many cities close to the Volga. Nizhny Novgorod, Kazan, Samara, Volgograd, which used to be Stalingrad. And then behind, more to the east, you have Yekaterinburg. It's a very nice city too. Used to be the place where they minted coins for the Russian Empire for 150 years. Copper mines, iron, and it got its name from the wife of Peter the Great. She was also called Katarina. Anyway, I don't think that many people realize it, but the Moscow Kremlin, that was built between 1300 and 1700. While the Kazan Kremlin, it's more than 1,000 years old. It's built in the 10th century already. It's actually UNESCO heritage from 2000 onwards. Fascinating country. Fascinating people too. So about skills and crafts. So I've always been fascinated by building things. I'm also a very creative person. I used to be outside, build huts from wood, tree huts, sand castles on the beach with my kids. Huge castles, really. And they would protect them because people would come to take pictures, etc. So yeah, I learned a lot of skills. I think if I would be better at mathematics and statistics, I might have studied architecture. On the other hand, I could have also been a history professor because in the end I think that is my real passion. So I ended up being a bit of a jack of all trades. I like to learn things. Whenever I don't know something, I will read, I will watch movies, videos. My biggest source is actually YouTube. The only problem with all those skills and crafts is that eventually it all becomes a job, and that's what I actually like about doing this renovation. A one-time project, so I'm not gonna be doing that for the rest of my life. Fascinated by crafts, really. I love people who know how to do certain things, but most of all I like to work with my hands. Even built my own windsurf boards with epoxy and polyester. Building and creating, it's something fascinating. And most of all because every time you do something, at the end of the day you see a result. There is something changed. And you did it with your own hands. That is what keeps me going, really. I think it's fair to say that during the COVID pandemic, especially the first months, I had a lot of time to think. It's during that period that I decided that I like this kind of life. And I'm not doing this just for the renovation. The renovation is just part of the whole project. I intend to spend a lot of years here. I think if you do something like this, a house like this, it's never finished. So there are many things still to be done. So future projects. I think I'm gonna leave one apartment behind, the one that is now my workshop. Maybe in the winter of 2024 this year. I'm thinking about a wooden house, maybe somewhere down below. I have to still create another 2 ponds and a lake. Animals. Where are the chickens? I didn't get myself any animals yet because I think that they need attention, they need care, and I'm just focused on the renovation for now. So I'll wait a little bit. Who knows? Maybe by April I'll get myself a dog first, and then the next thing is the chickens for sure. I'm planning to build some kind of a chicken coop down there. The problem here is that we have a lot of wild animals, also birds of prey. So you have to make sure you have an enclosed environment for your chickens. So it's going to take time and effort to build that. Then there's also a common area which I want to where I want to create something like a little bit of a bar and Sepp Holzner. So he was a little bit of a pioneer in the permaculture community. And I was actually fascinated by the fact that he built all those terraces on his mountain in Austria. Because in the end, when I found this place on the hill, from when I decided to buy this one, I knew I was going to create terraces too. They hold the water, you can grow trees, veggies, plants, flowers, everything you want. Clean the soil a little bit, take away the stones, that's a lot of work. But I like this whole idea of having a terraced garden. So by now it starts to look like a little village if you walk around here. There are so many staircases. And in fact, you know, I remember that when I was young, I did many projects on the Incas. And I visited Central America. And you can ask me a lot of things about the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Incas. And even they built terraces. So when you go to Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, you know, people grow everything on terraces. There's even a project in the Gobi Desert in China. I saw a documentary about this American photographer who went there for the first time like 30 years ago. And that's when the Chinese government initiated a project to stop the desert. So it was a barren land. If you go now, it's a lush mountains. You'll find lush mountains, and the desert actually stopped. And in the Sahara, you have the same thing going on, mostly done by women, by the way. But they're trying to stop the desert from expanding by building swales and terraces and then planting trees. So all these kind of things, they not only fascinate me, but here I have the possibility of doing it myself, and definitely one of the things I'm going to be doing in the next couple of years, probably the rest of the time that I will be spending here. One of the things I love about this place is its location, a position towards the sun. You know, it's south facing. It's January. Look at the parsley. It's still green. It's one of my neighbors, she asked me a question too. I think it's an important one because what is really special for me about this project is that this is actually the first time in my life that I'm not working for a client. So I get to decide how to build it, how to design, how to do the interior, how it has to look. I think I can be quite stubborn, but it's not like I don't listen. I can listen very well. In fact, I have a group of people that I met in this area, and I very regularly consult them, including my architect and geometer. And basically I present my ideas, this is what I want to do, and then I get all kind of solutions, maybe 2 or 3 options. And the good thing is every option, you know, you can calculate the effort, the time it will cost, the price, the materials you need. And in the end, I will take a decision. But the nice thing is that I'm the one that is taking the decision, and I don't have to call a client. So I think there's another thing, apart from that being able to decide yourself, there's another thing that is actually important. It has to do a little bit with the way you are raised, maybe. We have a saying in Dutch, don't stick your head out, it might be chopped off. Act normal because you are crazy enough already. Work hard if you want to achieve something. And I guess it holds a lot of truth, but in today's individualized world, I think you do have to try to stand out and do some self-promotion, things like that. It's not something that comes natural. I'm basically someone that thinks that he's not good enough, and the only way to show that actually I am is to work hard. So maybe in a way, doing this project, being able to decide myself, is a way to show people that I am actually capable and I'm actually good enough, which may sound funny. It's a personal thing, and it's an important thing for me. So it's easy to say that it was during COVID times that I changed my mind, etc., etc. Of course, it's true, and I had a lot of time to think. But I think that it's even more important that at a certain point I just had to be really honest with myself. And I think many times I know what I want, but I'm a little bit afraid to shout it out loud. I'll probably get remarks when I do that. So I prefer to keep it a little bit to myself. And the funny thing is then it just doesn't happen. So when I started looking for a property, I wanted to buy myself a small house, and these things, they all have to do with that subject. The biggest step I actually took was to not only take on the project, big as it is now, but also start to talk about it, open a YouTube channel. So I planted these olive trees like a year and a half ago in September, and I see that they are really growing very well on my hill. So instead of more fruit trees, I'm going to plant a lot of olive trees, because when you hear the old stories from the people, the ones that are 80 plus, in this area used to be really cold in the winter, maybe -10, -15, up to -20. Now climate change is a thing. I believe it's actually devastating. Maybe it's one of the reasons why we don't have so much rain here. And you have to adapt. For sure you have to adapt. So what I've seen so far is that planting olive trees and mandorle, like almond trees, they grow very well in this area. So I'm going to plant a lot of those. And then for the flowers I have to find out a little bit what kind of flowers work well. So what started out as something small, it became bigger and bigger and bigger. But before I started, I did make a calculation, because I do have a bit of experience and previous experience. I also have a friend who had a B&B in Florence. I spent a lot of time there between 2010 and 2014. Know about calculations. So if you want to know about how much it costs, I don't really want to go into the tiny details. But in general, I think if you do a lot of things yourself, you are still looking at 800 to 1000 per square meter. And if you have everything done by a construction company, of course everything depends a little bit on what materials you use. But still, if you have everything done, you're definitely looking at 2000, 2500 and upwards. Because it's not so much about buying an old stone abandoned house, farmhouse. I mean, whether you're in Portugal, Spain, Greece, Italy, I think the challenge is the renovation and the renovation cost. Plus the next thing is that if you look around, you won't find any houses like 80 to 100 square meters. Those have been sold 30 years ago. So almost everything you find, it's at least 300, 400 square meters times the price per square meter, and you know what you're starting to do. So with all the experiences I've had in the previous years, and changing about my mind about lifestyle, taking on this project, I made a new budget, and I think I was pretty much on point with a 15% margin, mostly because small expenses, they add up very quickly, especially if it's a big project. So yeah, what can go wrong? I mean, the first time my first house, I was a young father, working full time, so I didn't have a lot of time. Also didn't have a lot of money. The second house I bought it in January 2009. That was about 3 months before the house market crashed. So lucky me. And then here I am. This is the third property. I had a good budget, good planning. What can go wrong? They call it inflation. Man, it's incredible. It's really... Last year, some prices went through the roof. All the building materials, I think by now they are like at least 30% more than before. So if you start off with a project and you have a budget of 100,000, 30% more, it's like 30,000 euros. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing that that went wrong this time so far. So I think it's pretty clear what I want to do with the place. I hope to open, at least have some apartments finished by the end of May, the beginning of June. And I'm calling it a little bit of a hybrid year, so maybe I'll have some groups coming. Maybe I can use some of the big platforms to get some people to spend a holiday here. Because really I don't have any, you know, as long as the project is not finished, you cannot have any good photographs or whatever. So there's no marketing, nothing that I can do at the moment. So it's going to be a hybrid year. And that's okay too, because eventually you have to go from working all day renovating to having people to host, etc. And getting used to, I don't know, making up beds, and I have no idea yet how I'm going to organize all of that, but we'll see about it. The thing is that I'm always a very optimistic person. And I think every challenge and every problem and every challenge you meet, eventually you'll find the right solution. And that's what I really like about life in general. You know, it's we only live once, or at least that is what I think. So I've always tried to get the most out of it. And doing this is like a dream come true. I'm actually really proud of myself. Don't think I could have imagined that that seed that I was planted back in 2010 was going to become this. It's a pity that I didn't start to make videos from the beginning, but hey, it's like that, and nothing to do about it. Can't go back in time. Only look forward, and we can talk about the past, which is always fun. About that YouTube channel. I was thinking a little bit about that. There was a question about what I thought about that channel. I like to do a lot of sports. Probably the thing I like most is swimming. But that YouTube channel, you know, that started out like a way to update my family and friends. It has become a lot more than that, really. I couldn't imagine that in the beginning. You know, you see that you get reactions, remarks, but I don't think that at the start you realize what it does with you as a person. So I wanted to compare it a little bit like with maybe with a sports game. You know, you can go out and play tennis and there will be nobody watching you. And in a way, you start your YouTube channel, there's nobody watching you. I think it's fair to say that all of you there have become my supporters. And the nice thing about that is that, you know, you are still doing it alone, but having that support and getting those comments and remarks and reactions, and it's actually, you know, it's something wonderful. It's really nice. But there's a lot more to it. Things I didn't expect. So I got to meet a lot of people already. You know, people who are maybe searching for a house. Maybe they never thought about this region. They contact me, they come and take a look. Maybe they want to come and see it by themselves. People that are in the process of buying a house, people who bought a house, maybe they invite me over to come and take a look. And it's another aspect that I didn't I didn't see that coming, and it's a wonderful thing, really. I think there are two more things about the YouTube channel. So in 2021 I decided to stop doing my job and focus 100% on doing this renovation. And it's pity because I do like content creation a lot, and the thought that I would be completely detached from everything around internet, I felt a little bit sorry about that. But then when I started doing the videos, you know, it's like I have a new hook. I'm back into content creation. It's something completely new, something I have to learn, because I don't know about you guys, but I think a couple of days I saw maybe the one of the first 4 videos I made. I really didn't know what I was doing there. It's quite funny. I remember in the beginning also I used to turn on the camera, I would forget about it, I would have like 20 minutes of footage, I didn't know what to do, so I had this editing tool and I could speed up because I saw that in some other videos. But it doesn't make sense, you know, the music was too loud. So it's also it's like a new skill that you're learning, and it's lovely to do it, really. So by now I even upgraded some of my equipment. I have a laptop that I had an old laptop that just couldn't process the videos anymore. I bought myself a drone. Probably should use it a little bit more, but that's the only problem with the videos, is that doing something and maybe in the end of the day I think, oh, I didn't shoot any film. Am I gonna stay here the rest of my life? It wasn't a question, but if I look back at my life, I think there's always been like periods of 8 to 10 years. I'm 55 years old now. I didn't want to wait and do this project until after my pension. I'll be staying here for 10 years at least, unless something strange happens maybe. Because I want to see that paradise that I have in my mind. I want to see it grow and I want to see it happen. And nature takes time. Trees take time to grow. And from this side I think, wow, that garden, you know, one day it's gonna be so beautiful. I want to see it happening. I do have to start pruning the trees, probably now, no, January is a good time. But there are some things that I still want to do in life, and one of those things is I would like to sail a couple of years. So, and who knows, if I grow old enough, I don't really see myself sitting behind a window in an apartment in the Netherlands. So I'd prefer to spend those years maybe close to the beach, north of Colombia. Santa Marta is really nice. Cartagena is a little bit too busy. Under the palm trees, eating fish every day. That's not such a bad idea at all. I did want to wait until my kids were studying, and even wait until they would finish studying, because I think that the best life experience between all the adventures I had in life is definitely having kids and seeing them grow up, raise them to be fine young men. I'm really proud of them, and I can't think of not having them. It's been the experience of a lifetime. But I also told them for a long period of time that once they were studying, I would probably sell the house and leave. And that is exactly what I did in the end, because I made a lot of changes in my life. Usually I stay around 8 years to 10 years. And the only way to change for me, I mean, I can linger, I can wander, I can dream, I can think of something that I want to do in the future for a long time. I can really take a long time to take a decision, but it was clear it was going to happen one day. And I think that moment arrived somewhere in 2017. They were studying, and we didn't get to see each other a lot anymore. I mean, they were having their own lives. They had their rooms. They were studying in the cities in Belgium, and so we would basically see each other like every 2-3 weeks. And one night they were gonna come for dinner. I remember, I think it was 2017. It must have been 2017. Because I went all out, I made a nice dinner, and when they arrived at 6, they told me that they have to leave at 7:30. I mean, it's logical because they want to see friends, they want to go out. But I think that was the day that I thought, okay, it's time. So in the beginning of 2018, I put my house up for sale, and I sold it by the end of the year. So I had some time to say goodbye, because every time I have to say goodbye to my existing life, I need a little bit of time. It's always a bit emotional, you build up something and you're saying goodbye to it. Takes a bit of time. I mean, it's not a problem to take the decision, but afterwards I need a little bit of time to get to terms with my decision. I need to find peace in my decision. And there is this thing about, there are some local people who know a little bit my history, and they are like, what are you doing here? But this place, in fact, to me, it feels a lot like where I was brought up. So it's very green, people are very friendly, it's nice and quiet, easy living, good lifestyle really. So it reminds me of where I was raised and where I grew up a lot. And it's actually the thing I was looking for. When I believe earlier I said something that I would like to finish a couple of apartments by May, June. Now there is a possibility, of course, that I'm not able to do that, because there's still a lot of work, and I had a couple of days to go over my budget, plans, things that are left to do, and it's a lot really. I also have to be very much aware that certain things like all the kitchens, there's probably a delivery time. I used to worry a lot about problems in the future, and I don't know if it's a change of the lifestyle or it's just getting older. I know that I don't worry too much about potential future problems, because I believe there is always a solution. And worst case, I may have to go back and work for a couple of months, and that's okay. For now, I'm in my favorite place. I lived here in this room, these rooms, now it's a big room, for 3 years. I still cook here, eat here, take a shower, I have my stove. There's something about pellets and wood stoves. I would choose a wood stove every time if I have to choose between the two of them. But for my tiny house and this winter it was convenient. I had one pellet stove available. I used it in the past as an additional source of heat in the coldest days and nights. Central heating. So again, I will never choose pellets because the equipment is very expensive, and then the price of the pellets, it's not very stable. 2 years ago a bag would cost €5. Last year with the inflation and the energy crisis, the price went up to €14 a bag, imagine. And I think today it's like $6.50. Maybe if you shop around and you buy in bulk, you can get it for $6.20. But then it still depends on the quality. And if you have central heating on pellets, I think you're gonna need 4 or 5 bags a day, 30 euros. You can spend up to 600 to 900 euros a month. And just buying like the wood that I bought for this winter, it's like 180 euros for all the winter. And then there is the name of the channel. I like to keep things simple, and I had a lot of thoughts about it, and it doesn't make sense for me to have a channel in one name and do my marketing promotion under another name. So I'll probably change the name of the channel to the name of the house or the borgo in one of the upcoming weeks. If you're subscribed, it doesn't matter, you will still find me. If you're not subscribed, maybe I will leave something in the description whenever I change it. So I'm not sure if I answered all the questions. I think I come fairly close to it. But I think this is a nice place to end the Q&A. It's probably my favorite place still. So yeah, I think that's it for now. Next week there will be a working video probably. Alright, I'm cooking. It's almost finished, I think. So I'm gonna have a glass of wine. So I'd say if you're not on dry January, have a glass of wine. I might do an attempt for something like a dry January, but this week I'm still enjoying doing nothing. Proost.